New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
This is What's Up and Why, bringing you the bright side of life, one fun moment at a time. Brought to you by the New Thought Media Network. Please put your hands together for your hosts, Rev Casey Taylor and Miss B Lovely. Clap for us, clap for us. I love that. I love that you're doing it too.
Welcome. I was ready that time. Apparently, this is our tradition.
Yes, I don't know. I just feel like, it brings energy. It starts everything up well. And, who doesn't want to come out onto the stage with, a round of applause, even if you have to give it to yourself sometimes.
I love it. And I feel, I'm a bust out now before we even introduce ourselves, but I'm going to do that in a second, of how I am here for that and here for it all as the title of this episode. My name is Reverend Casey Taylor. I use they, them pronouns.
And I am B Lovely. I use she, her pronouns. And I am just so happy to be here with, the Cuzzo and with all of the viewers, because it's been such an amazing week, mainly because of music, mainly because it's Mariah Carey's first new album in 7 years, almost a decade since Caution dropped. I can't believe it.
Right. And, it's so funny. I went to get breakfast this morning, and the person who was ringing me up, how they ask you for your name for your order. And I was like, my name's Casey. And they were like, oh, I thought you were Casey. I think we follow each other on Facebook. So I was like, what's your name? And I was at a vegan restaurant. They were like, we probably know each other. I don't know their pronouns, so I'm just using they, them. I don't know. They were saying that that we're probably connected because we're both in this vegan group. And they asked me if I was going to the vegan. There's a Oklahoma City vegan festival happening this Sunday. And I was like, I'm speaking at 4:55. So they're like, I'm gonna see you there. But I'm saying this to say that while I was getting my food and after they gave me their name, I was like, oh, you commented on my Mariah post. You've been talking about how much you love this album, and more, Jesus, He Do It, you said was your favorite, right? And they were like, yeah, that one is my favorite. So it makes my heart to just be, at my restaurant, like talking Mariah's new album for breakfast in the morning. I am here for it and here for it all.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see that the project is being so well received. It's getting a lot of great positive reviews, even though the writer for Pitchfork wrote a very shady headline for their review of the album. But it's like, even despite little stuff like that, I think for fans, the Lamberley, this album is very, very special, because I've been following like her whole rollout and watching all her interviews and everything. And she says like this is like a culmination of different moments throughout her life, like from early years to present. And you can definitely, like, we know that, she writes her own music, and you can pick up in certain songs and stuff, like, what moment in life this is that she's referring to, because she is so candid and raw with her writing, because that's her way of expressing herself. And I just feel like it's just a beautiful message. I feel like it's really, for us, the Lamberley, I feel like more connected to her. And I just love how it makes me feel. Yes, give it up for Here for It All. That's the album art. I love how she just always oozes, elegance and decadence.
I appreciate what you just said about Mariah as a writer being so candid, and how as fans we feel like we really know what she's referring to in her life, because she gave us some context throughout her 20-year plus career. And so I don't know, 25 is definitely about 25
30
years.
30 minutes, not years, minutes.
So this minutes, that concept of what you just said about her as an artist being a demonstration of raw and candid and vulnerable. I personally got a big inspiration from this album, of the album occurring in a moment in my life where that happens to me. I've had these moments where a Mariah album comes along and it's everything I need and everything I'm feeling in a moment. But caution, I didn't have that relationship with it. E equals MC, I didn't have that relationship with it. So like basically in the later years, there have been a few that I haven't been in as alignment with. But this was one of those moments where when the album dropped, this was what I was experiencing, what I was going through. And she had this poetic way of talking about what I was going through. And it life turned in a way where I ended up choosing this album title and this song specifically as inspiration for this Substack article that I wrote. And I don't know, like, Clarissa, I can give you the link for that Substack article, but I kind of hid the article. It is called the line comes from the song "The Glory, the Shakes and Withdrawal." That line in the lyric from Here for It All. And I wrote a really personal and vulnerable Substack article about what I was experiencing and pointed out in the ways that the song really touched me and helped me deal with what I was experiencing at the time. I hid it I think you can only access it now as a paid subscriber, but and even that, like, it's just, I don't have the bandwidth to figure it out. I was a little bit more raw and vulnerable than I think I want to be in the long term on the internet. And maybe I want to edit it or so I just kind of made it for paid subscribers only for the time being. I think, I don't know, it might be accessible. I really don't know. But while I'm out here in the world just trying to function and be on my best day ever energy, what that looks like for me is not really overthinking what I'm doing with Substack and just get my stuff together. I got a new place. I'm trying to get my electricity turned on. I think I just decided today that I'm not going to get Wi-Fi until I need it. I like the idea of only using Wi-Fi at my office. And when I feel ready for TV, I'll get TV. But I like the idea of where I am in my life to have to be without internet for a time and get to a place where it's like, okay, I need to figure it out. Let me go get me some internet. Thank you, Clarissa, for dropping that link in the chat for my Rev Casey Taylor Substack.
Yeah. Kudos to you for, taking the plunge to wanting to disconnect from the digital world and spending more time being present. I feel like in this day and time, it's kind of like, it seems as a social norm that you have to be plugged into everything. You have to know about everything that's going on, stay up to date on all the shows, on the news and everything. But I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and I was saying, I don't think that we as humans, we were meant to be placed in this point in time where we are consuming copious amounts of not just media, but it's like of everything that's going on around us, like all the tragedies, all the devastation and everything. It's a lot. And I do the same thing like what you do. Well, I have Wi-Fi because sometimes I have to work from home, but when I'm not working and I don't absolutely need to be connected to the internet, I am disconnected. I am more into nature. I'm trying to be more present, do a lot of journaling and everything, because you can lose for me, I'm going to speak for myself. For me, you can end up down like a rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you look up and it's like, all this time has gone by. There's other things I could be doing. And then for me, it's overwhelming being connected to so many things and people feel like they can have access to me just because they see that I'm online and stuff. So kudos to you for drawing that line and having boundaries. And I want to encourage anybody who's watching, try to look at ways, you can try to disconnect and be more present in your own life instead of, mindlessly scrolling on social media or just sitting mindlessly watching TV and everything. Do something that fulfills your spirit and your mind and your body.
That is wonderful advice. I personally get so much value of what you just said about recognizing the value of staying present. And I really want to touch on what you said at the beginning of that, because before you jumped on Be Lovely, me and Clarissa behind the scenes backstage, we're talking about what you said that really struck me, that Clarissa and I were also talking about, was how humans were not meant to, we are not built to have this kind of relationship to technology. And what I was about to tell Clarissa, and I didn't get an opportunity to, is she was talking about how we are in an era where we are expecting our bodies to do things that our bodies are not designed to do. And what I was thinking about is Clarissa and I, and kind of you at the very, very beginning, we were born into an analog world where all of our institutions, all of them, are built in the way that analog institutions were built. And when computers came around, things were streamlined. But now that we live in a purely digital world where we have, like you said, access to so much technology everywhere, and the world that me and our producer were born into, that's not what the world was like at the time. And our institutions haven't even thought big picture of how structurally the way of being, the way of doing things is not at all working. And so we're in this really messy phase, I think, and for me, COVID really perpetuated that, where my relationship to technology got out of control during COVID. And now I'm in this place where I'm thinking about not having Wi-Fi in my apartment, where that's not a life I could have ever lived before. The freedom that I have now, but also just the recognition that I can use internet in these spaces. I got internet on my phone now, and I could do anything I need to do with my phone that can get here. So
yeah, you're doing what serves you and the purpose that you're meant to be here to fulfill. So let's dig a little bit into I really, 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 really want to talk about the last song on Here For It All, the title track, Here For It All. It was such a spiritual moment for me, especially at the end when the choir comes through. And it helped me to remember that, because we had a conversation about the album after it came out, that, I've noticed that I do turn to God a lot when things are either challenging, even when I'm happy and things are good. Like I'll check in every once in a while, but I wasn't being very consistent, especially recently. I haven't really been as consistent with my spiritual walk. But with that song and the song before, Jesus I Do, and Nothing Is Impossible, Mariah consistently had this thread of staying connected with spirit, staying connected with your spiritual source, which can help you through anything that you're going through in life, what can strengthen you and sustain you. And after listening to it, I just felt like this something in my spirit was like, you know what, let me open up my Bible, let me read a little bit of my scripture, let me go into prayer, not just bend my head down and pray, but actually get on my knees and pray and just have this moment of thankfulness and gratitude. And it's such a wonderful feeling when you have that moment and you realize, wow, I'm living in answered prayers. Even if everything that I have been praying for isn't coming to fruition, you can look and see like, okay, here are little answered prayers that I see that I'm living in right now. And it helps you feel even more grateful for where you are.
Absolutely. I love that this song, Here For It All, has really helped support both of us in deepening our spiritual practice. And to be honest, it sparked something in me that has been happening over the course of this week that I would have never expected. As a Christian, it makes sense to me that where you feel called, where you go is your Bible. I don't identify as, I actually have never really identified as a Christian. I went through my a Christian phase when I was in college, high school. When I was in high school, and in my exploration of the Bible, the religion itself didn't make sense to me. But now that I've developed my own personal understanding of what God means to me, and I feel like I can hear God's voice clearly within me and understand the difference between my inner wisdom and my inner shit talker, that was a whole journey all by itself. This week in particular, I have been loudly called to read the Bible for the first time. My landlord is who inspired it. He was asking me all kinds of questions about New Thought, and questions, he was bringing up the Bible as a reference for him. And he said to me, you don't know the Bible. You cannot answer these questions for me. You don't have a perspective about these things because you've never read this book. And so I was like, you know what? You are the first person. And I think it's the combination of how, this is what it means to know what God's talking is if the person in front of me is saying something and God's like, look, see, that. And that Substack article that I wrote about, one of my uncles who I've not had a great relationship with for like the last 7-8 years reached out to me and offered support. And he's a big fan of the Bible. He's also like an uncle on the Jewish side, like got me my first Bible when I was 12 years old for a Hanukkah present. And so fan in particular to be, he reached out to me the day that I decided that I was going to read this book. And I was like, you want to be my Bible study partner? Today's the day that we are set to start. And so I've just been present with all things, letting Spirit lead. I looked for the Bible that he gave me for my Hanukkah present. I couldn't find it this morning, but I literally just moved like just now. So I don't know. But I'm staying present. I trust Bibles are everywhere. One will find its way into my hands, or if I'll feel compelled to go to an app. I don't know. But it's so beautiful how Here for It All has inspired your connection with Spirit and just invited me to the Bible in a way that I would have never saw coming.
I'm really interested to hear, how your journey goes, exploring the multiple different stories in the Bible, because I'm not going to lie, some of the Bible stories, they're not pretty. There's some that are pretty vulgar. There's some that are very ugly. But one thing that's constant that the Bible reiterates is that in this world, there's going to be negativity and evil around. But at the same time, there's also good, and Christian followers are called to, do good in the world. And I've studied a few different religions. Like when I was in high school and college, like I had taken a class on Islam. And in my world studies class, like we had learned a little bit about there was Confucianism, Buddhism, and of course Judaism. And one thing that I had noticed that is a constant thread through most religions is that people are called by whoever spirit of the creator is for that religion to be kind, to do unto others as you want done to you, to put positive energy into the world. And when you do that, positive energy radiates back to you. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, like I was saying, I am interested to hear, how your interpretation, of the text is and everything in your experience reading through most of the stories.
Those universal qualities that you talked about that you saw present in all religions, like I was just focused on those things. And that to me, like that's the beauty of New Thought, is I don't need to read a story or that I got an opportunity to see spiritual principles in contemporary ways. And when I turned away from I don't even want to say turned away, through my exploration of Christianity, when I determined that it was not the community for me, I did not have a clear sense of those universal principles. And, I was a teenager and just confused about what was happening. And the people that were guiding me through this book, what they were saying felt and seemed very contradictory. So to go to a place that focused just on the principles themselves and not on how they've been put into context through this religion or that religion was where I felt safest. And I feel like I needed that to have, like what you just said about how the Bible isn't it has the messiness of life in it. It isn't claiming to be this perfect thing, but that this sacred book has been such a significant part of our culture, specifically in Oklahoma. Living in Oklahoma now, it's a huge part of our culture. I'm telling you about the person talking about Jesus I do at the checkout line at breakfast today. Like it's a Jesus is big man on campus in Oklahoma in a way that was not the life I was living in Chicago and LA. So just really seeing how now that I have my own clear relationship with God, that I can see how each story, to me, what the stories are those spiritual lessons in practice, that they are parables, that they are allegories, that's their intention. And I think I get caught up on people who believe that what is written is the spirit and the spirit of the, or I would not say the spirit of the law, that the physical nature of the law, that the earth is only 5,000 years old, that kind of thing. And it's like, if you want to believe that, I support you in believing that. I don't know. I wasn't here 150,000 years ago. And I also know that I don't know anything about carbon dating. So I'm not about to argue with anybody about that.
Yeah.
It's just recognizing that despite the fact that so many people stand in conclusions that feel in direct contrast to the physical laws of the universe, I don't have to worry myself with that. I don't have to judge that perspective. I get an opportunity to read this book through my own lens and my own clarity and understanding what spirit means for me. And I think that's significant.
That is very significant because that's the journey that I had to take in my mid to late 20s, because I grew up in a church on my mother's side. My grandfather, he was the pastor of a Baptist church. Grandmother was the first lady. So we were expected to be in church anytime we was at grandma and grandpa's house. Like, I sing in a choir and everything, but I saw a lot of hypocritical actions. Like, the Bible says this, but then you see people in the church congregation and stuff behaving in ways that contradict what the text said. And so for me, it made me not really want to feel connected with the religion. And I felt like I'm just doing this because my family is making me. But when I got to college, that's when I decided I'm going to have my own personal relationship. And I'm questioning, like, okay, who is God? What are we really supposed to do? What does the actual text say? Because some churches, they just gloss over things. They don't really go deep into it. And when I decided I wanted to have a personal relationship, not just focus on the church and, the people and the contradictory way how people act, I'm like, let me see what the actual text says. And I built my relationship based off of what the text says and through prayer and everything. And I just felt like that was a better experience for me. Like, that's how I live now. Like, I watch church online, I read my Bible, I have my own, personal relationship with God. And I feel like that serves me a lot better. And it gives me a better understanding. Cause like you say, in Oklahoma, they like go hard for Jesus. But it's like, when you look at some of these lawmakers who claim that they are Christian and believe in Jesus, a lot of their actions are hateful and completely contradictory to what Jesus would do and what the Bible calls people to do. And that's what turned me off in the beginning from Christianity. But having that own personal relationship and exploring through the text with your own eyes and interpreting it, I feel like that will be a really, really interesting experience for you.
I agree. And I'm grateful for your support. I have a question for you. And before I ask that question, I will tell you now that I would love for, when we pray out of this episode, that we do it together, that we create a little room for you to pray out, me to pray out. Maybe you start and I finish. So I'm gonna ask you this question first, and maybe we can talk about it for a little bit and leave some room for prayer.
Okay.
So at the end of the song, "Here for It All," that gospel breakdown chorus that you mentioned, Mariah is repeating the phrase, "This is just a rehearsal test flight." What does that mean to you?
So for me, from reading the Bible and seeing like what Christ says, what life is, and I'm speaking from the Christian perspective, New King James Version, because there are different versions of the text and there are different interpretations for each version. So from me reading New King James Version, Jesus says, this life is not but for a mere moment, but the afterlife is forever. And he, through his parables, he in a way explains it like, right now life is just like a test run. Like, this is the test, because in Christianity we are told, like, here on earth, this is where God is testing us to see, how do you act? Can you follow the commandments? Can you handle yourself with civility and kindness and fruit of the spirit? And when judgment day comes, the test is over. And when it's time to go, if you fail, you go one way. If you pass, you go another way. So when she was saying that, I interpreted it as her, you know, telling what the text says, like, this life here, we're here for a moment. It's a test run, but the afterlife, that's for eternity. And that is etched in stone once judgment day is done.
I appreciate you explaining that to me. I'm learning so much about Christianity. The way that I I see life, and this is kind of what me and my landlord were getting into, is I don't see this as practice, and everything that comes after that is what matters. I see it all as mattering. And so what I believe is that energy, because energy is all there is, that it can never be created, it's never been destroyed, it is only transferred. That this experience of life that we have is in a moment in time, but I don't think it's that an afterlife that we go to. I think it's a new creative expression of being, that our energy is transferred into a new way of being. And I think I personally believe that heaven and hell are states of mind. And so for me, that song in particular, she's really talking about how when we're feeling disconnected, because the second half of first it's this is just a rehearsal test flight, and then she says you gotta praise the most high. And so I saw it as, and I'm sure you're right, because you and Mariah are Christians, and like y'all are on that. This is just the way that I perceived it.
Yeah.
From my understanding is that the challenges that we face in life are a rehearsal for the next thing that we're about to do. And so the challenges that we're facing serve as a reminder to connect with spirit, that
Yeah.
we're focusing on the things not going the way they wanted to. We're focusing on the conflict. We're focusing on the messy parts, or like what you talked about, like the horror of life itself, instead of recognizing that this experience serves as a rehearsal for the thing that comes next. And regardless of what we're going through, whether we're experiencing joy or whether we're experiencing heartache or challenge, that what is ours to do is to connect with that wisdom of the divine that lives within all of us.
Yeah. I understand that interpretation. I understand that interpretation. But one thing I want to piggyback off of what you just said, that in life when you have challenges and stuff, hold on to your spiritual anchor. I want people to remember when life gets tough and you're going through challenges, you're not stuck in it. You're going through it. It's just like a storm. There's going to be storms in life, but the storm never stays. The storm always passes through. So I want anybody who's tuning in to remember that whatever challenges you're going through, whatever difficulties you may face, whatever things that are popping up, you're like, why is this happening to me? This is the end. No, it's not. You're going to go through it. It's not an end. You're getting through it, and it's going to pass by. And to hold on to hope and hold on to whatever your spiritual anchor is, because that is what gets you through those dark days, because that's the light on the other side of the darkness that can be your anchor to guide you through that darkness.
That is beautiful and feels like the perfect segue for prayer. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I am. So as a Christian, I'm just going to pray the way how I know how.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined in and everyone who's helped make this show possible. I ask that in this moment that we are taking a moment to like really reflect and look into ourselves, look into, what it is that our spirit feels called to do. Our spirit feels is the purpose of our lives to like guide us through the decision making. And I just ask that we all lean in kindness and lean in prosperity and positive thoughts, because you are what you think. If you think positive thoughts, you will attract positivity, and not to allow any negativity to fester, but to allow it to float away like a balloon. And I'll let you pick it up.
Yes. And I am grateful that prayer doesn't need to look any particular way, that we get to come together and be who we are and recognize that God expresses itself in an infinite amount of ways. I'm grateful for the space that we create for authenticity. I am grateful for the impact that we make by inspiring each person to live the best day ever and identify the brighter side of life, one fun moment at a time, and grateful for our experience of family and the shift that we create together. In gratitude, I invite us to close this prayer however we feel called. I choose to close by saying, and so it is.
Amen. Thank you for ending that prayer. And thank you to our lovely viewers for tuning in for another episode of What's Up and Why. This has been such a fun episode. The time went by so fast with us talking.
I'm glad. I love like this was we didn't do the segments today. This was definitely a spirit-led kind of experience. And as a minister, I'm all for that.
Yes. Well, everybody take care of yourselves, and we'll see you back here, same time, same place next Thursday. I'm Miss B Lovely.
And I am Rev Casey Taylor. Have the best day ever.